they mentioned, I'm struggling to know if this is what the life experiences essay wants or if I'm just trauma dumping. That was their words, not mine. Am I just sharing too much? So we can decide together how we feel like it fits the prompt here. Let's get into editing. And this won't be quite as crazy in depth as I do if I'm like truly editing. So I want to get through a lot. So life experiences. The very first thing I'm going to do when I read an essay is check the character limit. So this one has 1,867 characters, and that includes spaces. So we're good. That's under 2,500. That's great. And let's keep that prompt in mind of how is this person going to advance the goal of healthcare providers providing empathetic patient care to different communities. Okay. The other thing I do typically first is fix the formatting. We've talked about this in like our personal statement webinars, but in CASPA, you can't use tab. So you do 2 enters instead so that it looks better. If it's just one big block of text, y'all, this is so hard to read. Probably one of my biggest pet peeves when I see this on an application or get that submitted for editing. Like, remember that the admissions people are reading hundreds and thousands of essays. So be kind on their eyes, okay? We're going to read it out loud as we go. Growing up, I rarely went to the doctor's office. I grew up in an immigrant household where my parents had trouble communicating with providers in English, so visiting the doctor was often the last resort. That's interesting. As I grew older, I found myself translating for my parents to make sure they understood the provider's instructions. After some searching, my parents found a primary care provider who spoke our language, took the time to educate them about their medications, and encouraged them to come for regular checkups. So this is like a very personal start, which I enjoy. I'm going to get a little nitpicky here with some wording. You can take out any words that are implied, and that just saves on characters, but it also makes it easier to read. So like as I was reading this out loud, and I encourage you to read your essays out loud, it just got a little bit wordy. So after some searching, my parents found a primary care provider who spoke our language, took the time to educate, we can say just about medications, and encouraged regular checkups. Do y'all see how that just kind of simplifying makes it flow better? I don't know. As you do it, you get a little bit better at it. So I like this intro. I feel like I'm learning about them. I will say, so this is where you have to choose how personal you want to be. And there's different reasons for this, but my question is like, where were you from? What language were you speaking? Like, I want to know more. And so if you felt comfortable sharing, you could include that. There's a couple of reasons for that. I think it makes you more memorable the more you share. It gives your reader more chances to connect with you because you never know if the person reading this is from the same place or has the same background. And, then they're kind of like, oh, like, this person's like me. And then you kind of have that connection. So totally up to you how much you share, but just a thought if you're kind of trying to decide. Okay. Throughout my experience in various healthcare settings, I've seen families in similar situations as mine. I saw how language barriers hindered patients from sharing their full stories to providers, leading to miscommunication and delays in receiving treatment. At the endocrinology clinic, a lot of patients only spoke Spanish, so I decided to start learning basic Spanish phrases to be able to introduce myself and ask how I could help them. I continued to learn Spanish phrases through my conversations and with the help of professional interpreters. So I really appreciate how you're showing me how you recognized a problem and did something about it and kind of the outcome. I want to also remind you guys that this essay is at the very beginning of your application. So they haven't really gotten to your experience yet. And do we know if they're reading them in order? We don't know. But they could be, or they could not be. I would try to kind of give just a little bit of context if there is space. So like in this setting, like even if you could share, where was I? Working at the endocrinology clinic as an MA or as a tech, just to kind of show me like what you were doing there would be helpful. Thinking about context is something to keep in the back of your mind as you're writing all of your essays. Same thing with supplementals. You don't know if they've reviewed your application. The person looking at your supplementals, you don't know if they've read your personal statement, so you do want to give enough context. Growing up in an immigrant family where our first language was not English taught me a lot about perspective in healthcare. I wanted to make these patients feel as comfortable as my parents felt with their primary care provider. I saw how my parents began to go to each visit, learned how to properly take their medication, and felt more confident in managing any health issues they encountered. Through my actions, I hope to instill the same level of confidence and trust in all the patients I saw. I'm going to keep going and then come back to that. As a PA, I want to make sure all patients, no matter their background, feel comfortable during their visit and truly understand their health conditions. I hope to advocate for each patient, encouraging them to take control of their health through empathy and preventative treatment measures. So one thing that I like is that this person is pulling wording from the prompt. And I think that's very helpful for supplementals. And I'm considering the life experiences like a supplemental to show that you are answering that part of the prompt and addressing it. I kind of feel like these two paragraphs, 1 and 2, or 2 and 3, should be switched because it kind of felt like a jump between like an action they took and then going back to their family. So I feel like the flow would be better. I would probably recommend switching that one. And then from a context perspective, this person said, is it okay to only tie in the PA profession in the last paragraph on the experiences essay? I think so. Like the prompt itself doesn't even talk about being a PA really. It just talks about healthcare providers in general. So I don't think this essay has to be very PA focus. Like it is really more just getting to know you and about you. This is a good start. I think, there's room, they have characters. So I think if they could even like dig in a little bit more, tell me a little bit more about their background growing up, maybe use a story, like a specific example of a time that they were in this situation and having trouble, that could help paint the picture just a little bit more. But other like truly this is well written. I think it's a good answer to life experiences. So no major changes or anything there. Should you mention PA somewhere in the essay, and should you spell out PA? Those are your questions. I personally probably would mention PA at some point instead of just going with the general healthcare provider. To me, again, the life experiences essay is kind of like a supplemental. So for things like supplementals, life experiences, COVID, I don't think you have to spell out PA. I think your personal statement is really the only place where I want to see that, like you do like this. Whereas for these essays, they're shorter and it can be more implied. I still go with physician assistant over physician associate in all essay writing, unless you're only applying to programs that go by physician associate or only applying to states that have switched, which is very minimal and probably not going to happen. Most places are still physician assistant until the states decide if they're going to switch over. All right, let's go to another life experiences essay. So 2,890 characters, so a little bit longer. And this one, with the submission, they mentioned, I'm struggling to know if this is what the life experiences essay wants or if I'm just trauma dumping. That was their words, not mine. Am I just sharing too much? So we can decide together how we feel like it fits the prompt here. And we're going to also focus on trying to shorten a little bit here. The average 11-year-old girl is experiencing her first year of middle school. She is having play dates and sleepovers at her friends' houses. Her greatest concern in life is deciding which nail polish color matches best with her outfit of the day. At 11 years old, I was laying in a hospital bed with a nasogastric tube down my throat. I was having meetings with therapists and doctors at an inpatient treatment facility. My greatest concern in life was whether or not I wanted to eat my next meal. People say that trauma experienced early on in life can cause a person to grow up faster than they should, yet I'm grateful that I even had the support and care that allowed me to grow up. Wow. That is like a very powerful intro. I was in the hospital for 10 days for an eating disorder during the season of my life where I should have been looking forward to moving up to the 6th grade. I do try to avoid contraction. I was diagnosed with an eating disorder, depression, and suicidal ideation, and severe obsessive compulsive disorder, and spent the summer of 2014 in an intensive inpatient treatment center. During that period of my life, food had lost its pleasure. It wasn't until I was standing in the shower one evening and I noticed my ribs and hip bones jutting out did I accept that I needed help. The treatment facility was located in another state, so my mother and I took residence in the Ronald McDonald House near the hospital. I spent months there. Most of the time, I felt like I was in a trance from the antipsychotic medication my doctors had me take. Slowly, through the combined efforts of doctors, therapists, and the relentless love and support of my parents, I began to heal. I still remember the day I got into the car at the treatment facility's parking lot for the last time. The desires I had to end my life became quieter, and I was able to return home with a sense of hope. So this, I appreciate how personal this is. Being able to look back now on my experiences has been a process, one that I continue to work through with a therapist. I didn't know it then, but the resilience I had in knowing that deep down I wanted to get better was still there. The collaborative approach to my rehabilitation was critical as it took multiple team members from across specialties and talents to hold my hand through that trial. I remember encountering very kind nurses and doctors during my stay, and I always whisper a prayer of thanks for their contributions to my care. Through my trauma, I'm able to come out stronger. I also have the ability to empathize deeply with those experiencing some of the lowest moments of their lives. This attitude that I have towards the hurting will only benefit me as a physician assistant, particularly since I would like my focus to be providing care in a hospital setting. Maybe one day I'll look into someone's face and see my 11-year-old self crying out for comfort and help. When that time comes, I'll be prepared to answer. So sweet. I feel like this statement, did that work here, is kind of the crux of this essay, where this to me is really like sums up what the prompt is about. This is the stuff that, I mean, could this be in a personal statement? It absolutely could, especially if this experience is what brought someone to medicine or to becoming a PA, then absolutely it could be in there. But that's also like you're not really going to have space to expand the way you want to. So even if you mention your own medical personal experiences in your personal statement, using the life experiences essay to expand on them is a great place to do that. I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to shorten some of the story portion of it because we've got to get it shorter by about 300 characters. And I almost want more expansion here, just a little bit. I just can tell when y'all worked really hard on your essays. I probably would say we could shorten here and combine her greatest concern. We can take that out. So like any extra words we can take out. I almost feel like we could even take out this sentence because it's a like, you do get personal, but it's a little bit more of a generalization. And I think it's going to flow better into the next part if we don't have like a summary sentence here and we just continue with the story. And that gives you 189 characters. Like that's significant. Like we could probably say until I appreciate the visualization. This is just if you need to say on space, we can take out some wording. So personally, if we go like, is this too much? Is it trauma dumping? Whatever. Personally, I don't think so. I think there's so much value in sharing your own personal experiences and how that will impact how you take care of patients. Going through something personally, either yourself or with a family member, makes your interaction with patients so much different when you can just relate to them on a different level. I've shared before, and he's fine with me sharing, my dad had throat cancer, and I specifically see patients frequently who also are going through that. And whether they have gone through it, they are going through it, I'm able to connect with them differently because of that shared experience. And even their loved ones going through it and having to adjust what they eat and if they can eat, and the radiation is terrible and all this, like we can talk about those things in a different way. So no matter what you've been through, you probably have something like that where you, because of an experience, will be able to relate to patients differently. And that's what we're trying to point out here and to share. That doesn't have to be your personal medical situation. That can also be something you've done. When I was in college, I volunteered with hospice patients, and being able to see them kind of what they were going through, and knowing that a lot of my elderly patients live in similar situations gives me a different perspective when I see them now. If you're struggling with some of these, just dig into those experiences you've had, whether personal, volunteer, patient care, whatever they might be, because I promise you have something, and you just have to like figure out what that is and why it's meaningful to you so that you can share that with the admissions committee. So I think this experience is one of those that will absolutely give you a different outlook and help you connect with patients. I think shortening here and then this part is really, I feel like, important. So it's really the story we need to shorten a little bit. Just think this part is really strong. So if there's room to expand, you can, but then you may have the opportunity in supplementals as well. I'm going to wrap up because I know that was a lot. We'll be posting more of these live edits, going through and like true edits on YouTube. And hopefully that will be helpful for you guys. But thank y'all for being here.